All right, guys, it's time for the Next Level Guy Show, a men's interview, interest, and improvement-focused podcast featuring interviews with the greats from all industries to help you better your life. Each week, a new episode features an interview with one of the greats, covering all aspects of their story, from life hacks to tips and protocols that have allowed them to live life on the next level. We then highlight concrete action steps that you can use to improve your life. And now, your host, Ian Dawson McKay.
And today's guest is Jason Khalipa. Jason is the founder of NCFit, a global fitness company with brick-and-mortar locations, corporate wellness, and digital services. He's a 3-time Team USA CrossFit member and a CrossFit Games Champion. A pediatric cancer advocate, after his daughter was diagnosed with leukemia in 2016, he's the host of the Effort Over Everything podcast and a BJJ Purple Belt. And now, let's get to the interview. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I was a fan of yours when you were doing CrossFit. I'm now a fan of yours while you're changing the ethos and the teachings and the way gyms and programming's done. But for the few people living under a rock who maybe don't recognize your name, could you give a quick intro? How would you define who you are?
Yeah, sure. My name is Jason Khalipa. I'm the founder of NCFit. We're a fitness company with brick-and-mortar locations, digital services. We support gym owners and athletes all over the world. And then I won the CrossFit Games, husband, and father of 2.
I love it.
I love BJJ too. I love Jiu-Jitsu.
Well, we're going to get into that because I'm a blue belt, and I was like, yes. As soon as I seen that,
there
I was
we
like,
go. There we go.
I'm good, man. So we'll start with the easy questions. How would you define true fitness in life? Now, everybody talks about like physical fitness, but how would you define it? Like, because you're always happy, but you've gone through some sort of emotional heartaches when your daughter was sick. You're always positive. You always seem to be just like building this juggernaut of a business. You're fit, doing fitness stuff for the whole time. What do you think the definition of true fitness is?
I think the way we define it at NCFit and our goals are to help people live freely and fully, particularly outside the gym, but however you want to describe that, live freely and fully. And what that means to me is that fitness means that fitness should never inhibit the things that I need or want to do, is the way that I think about it. And so if life demands I have to sit on a toilet, I should be able to do that. If life demands that I want to go climb a mountain with my kids, I should be able to do that. And when I think about fitness, that's the goal. Live freely, live fully for as many days as possible.
And it's certainly something not a lot of people are doing nowadays. You see some people out of shape, and we can get food delivered to your door, taxis. We can even order dates online and stuff. Yeah, we don't seem to have a challenge anymore. Do you think that's a problem? When you grew up, you were into BMXing, you were like track and field, and you were very sporty. Do you think that's a thing nowadays? Is that we're not doing those things as kids now? It's technology, or.
Yeah, for sure. I think micro adversity teaches you a lot. And I think that, yeah, absolutely. I think that it is a major problem if at a youth level, children are not being exposed to microdose of adversity through sport or through physical activity, because that's such a great way to experience it. Because then as they get older, and if they haven't experienced anything difficult like that, they don't know how to handle it. And we see it firsthand all the time now. If you're a kid who's been stuck on a laptop or an iPad for all these years, when life kind of comes and kicks you in the nuts, because it always does, you're less able, you're more fragile. And, you have to build these kind of like resilient children is something that I'm very focused on. And I think sports and exercise help with that a ton.
That's a great answer, because you see everybody kicking off nowadays about participation trophies and things like that, and I'm from the generation where the winners won, and the rest of you had to just stand there and applaud them, and I can see it from both sides. Like I would love my nephews getting involved and getting trophies for taking part and encouragement, but also the other side, are we not giving each other a challenge anymore? Have we lost our sort of purpose or why? What got you into sport when you were younger?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the participation trophy thing, it's interesting because on the one hand, you want to encourage people getting out there and doing stuff. My sister just participated in this event the other day, and some would say it was a participation event, but at least she was out there doing something when most people are just sitting on the couch. But then at the same time, right, children and adults have to learn how to win and they have to learn how to lose, and I think that's really important. And those are really important skills to develop. And my son plays a lot of sports, my daughter does as well, and I think that they learn just as much from winning. I mean, excuse me, yeah, they learn potentially more from losing than they do from winning, which I think is pretty powerful. But I got into sports at a young age. My dad and mom weren't like overly athletic types. My dad came from Iran. He was more of an engineer type. My mom came from Rhode Island. She was more kind of, but she wasn't, she didn't play collegiate sports or anything of that nature. And so growing up, I didn't have as much exposure necessarily. My parents would introduce me to things like soccer, but then I started kind of hanging out with kids around the neighborhood and they introduced me to BMXing. And so I raced BMX bikes for a long time when I was a kid. Looking back on it, I wish I had done a few things differently. I think it could have built a different foundation, but BMX was a great sport because it taught you, back to what we were talking about, it taught you how to win, it taught you how to lose for sure.
And I think we all loved those memories when we're kids, like the riding down hills without brakes and try to do flips and stuff like that. And you learn to just shake off if you landed heavy and just get
Yeah.
up. And that was part of the fun. It was getting dirty and getting banged about the place. But what do you think there are physical benchmarks that you would strive for every person listening to be? Like if do you see similarities with the people who come for coaching, the gym member coaches who are part of your programs? Do they bring in a kind of similarity in where they see their clients going wrong in terms of their general fitness, they're being fit for life?
I mean, I think that from a coaching perspective, I think that we've seen an evolution in the fitness space. I got started in the conventional gym when I was 15. And when I was really young, it used to be about, basically like get on a piece of cardio and leave, or it used to be about bodybuilding. And then I think CrossFit really changed the game as far as I'm concerned. A couple of years later, when I was introduced to CrossFit, I think I was like 18 at the time. And this idea of blending strength and conditioning was just such a beautiful uh, way to look at it. And I think that, when we look at fitness, what's paramount, what's critical, what's essential is strength and conditioning. Not just one, not just the other, but both. And I think that people in general are starting to see that. And I think all of our coaches, obviously at NCFit and the NCFit Collective, which is our session plans and program for gym owners, they're also seeing that. And so it's that bridging the gap between helping people live freely and fully by utilizing strength and conditioning, and in particular, movements that provide good value outside the gym, like deadlifts, back squats, cleans, things of that nature. I think they carry over really well into real life and they're highly effective. And that's what we've seen in our gyms.
Because that's something I noticed. I love in your programming. You've got like strength and conditioning, but you've got like endurance. You've got like gymnastics. You put in sort of facets of all these different modalities and stuff. You don't kind of just sit and go, yeah, 3 sets of 10 like some gyms. You kind of really like when I look at some of your workouts, I get tired just reading them. And I'm like,
Man.
oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the goal is in particular, for anybody listening, if you're looking for a good, just foundational strength and conditioning program, I think our NCX program is, obviously I'm biased, but I think it's the world's best, just foundational strength and conditioning program. I would put my mom on it, my dad, my wife, you name it. And, because I think for most people, most of the time, to get in really good shape, they need to dedicate, I don't know, at least 3 days a week for an hour a day to just, a solid strength session where they're lifting something that's moderately heavy and then getting in a 12 to 20 minute kind of high intensity work. I think there's a lot of benefit there. Plus other stuff that people need to do, obviously.
I mean, and you think of the what people are actually doing nowadays. I mean, we started, you're running out from dusk till dawn after school and stuff like that. And now you're lucky if people are doing more than 5,000 odd steps. Do you think there are movement patterns that we should all be doing? Like, like in jiu-jitsu, we're doing like bear crawls and cartwheels, and you're like, you see people who can barely get off the ground without like their face being bright red and stuff like that. And you're going from top to bottom, getting thrown around in jiu-jitsu. You're doing handstand push-ups in CrossFit, things like that. Are there basics or movement patterns like animalistic or primeval kind of things that you would focus on?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about like jiu-jitsu, you're thinking about like shrimp moves. You're thinking about, I don't know, rolls, and you're thinking about, creating pressure. Obviously, when you think about fitness, what you're thinking about is bang for your buck, multi-joint, and you're thinking about functionality in real-world applications. So I would say, things like a thruster or a back squat are highly foundational. You're taking a load through a very long range of motion. You're providing a big stimulus and impact on your body. And I think moves like deadlifts, pulling something from the floor, back squats, lowering and raising your center of mass with the barbell on your back or dumbbells or whatever you want to call it, doing some type of pressing. So if you pull, push, press, and like do some type of hinge on a regular basis, and combine that with 12 to 20 minute conditioning pieces that get your heart rate elevated and ultimately get you sweaty, I think that's the secret to success for longevity in terms of strength conditioning.
Because you get these guys that come in and go, right, I'm going to go back to the gym, and they're like, okay, I'm going to go 6 days a week. I'm going to do boxing in the morning. I'm going to do jiu-jitsu at night. And you're like, good luck with that. 5 minutes in, they're on the floor, almost puking their guts. I mean, I used to do powerlifting, so I was deadlifting over 200k, and I was like, yeah, I'm the bee's knees. Tried jiu-jitsu, could barely get my feet over my head. 2 minutes into a roll, and I was breathing at my arse. I was struggling. Like, it's another world of conditioning. Like for jiu-jitsu, do you think things like that are a better way of doing conditioning than the sort of like the exercise bike, the running? Like, is jiu-jitsu a perfect sport for conditioning, do you think, or is there a better way of teaching and getting people truly fit in that sense?
I mean, that's a good question, but I think running would probably top all. I think running, look, jiu-jitsu is highly effective for conditioning. Don't get me wrong, but for most people, most of the time, if you don't have much experience in jiu-jitsu, and in particular, if you're wearing a gi, you're gonna get stuck. Jiu-jitsu has a very high learning curve. Once you get pretty good at it, especially no gi, I mean, those matches can be highly competitive, highly cardio based, and just like the way that I feel after a very, very difficult roll is something that I had not experienced before. It really anywhere else. I mean, maybe at like a high level, like a workout, like a Fran in CrossFit, maybe something similar. But when you're almost like fighting for your life in jiu-jitsu while simultaneously trying to control your breathing, while thinking through things, while trying not to get taken down or choked, it's very, very stressful on the system. So yes, I think that it's phenomenal. The problem is that the learning curve is so high to ever even get to that point. And so I'd say that, running, hill sprints, sprints of any type is probably going to be your best form of just cardio. Whereas I think jiu-jitsu is awesome, but I think you got to be in it for a while to really kind of unleash that, I think.
Definitely. I mean, I'm a pressure passer because I'm a fat guy, and I love being able to kind of slow it down. There's times when, you're trying to be explosive and you just go, no, like I'll just cram into this guy here. Do you think that's the problem, is that newbies don't look at their, like, the duration, the intensity, the frequency? They just think, I'm going to go to the gym and do a 3-hour workout because they've seen X mate do it. Is that...
Well, I think you got to understand what you're trying to accomplish, right? So if you're trying to be like the fittest person on the planet, you're going to have to train a lot of hours. If you're trying to become an MMA star, you got to go out there and you got to get in your wrestling, you got to get in your jiu-jitsu, you got to get in your stand-up. And it just takes time. But if you're just trying to stay fit to go do cool stuff with your kids, you don't need to spend 3 hours in the gym every day.
So how would you, do you have like a sort of your general entry program? How do you shape that for such a wide range of people? Like, what's the sort of philosophy behind your sort of entry level, your basic program, the one that you put your parents on, you would put your friends on? the one that sort of introduces you into people to move their body again, to actually get their heart racing, to break a sweat even.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that our programming is perfect for someone who's, like if you haven't gotten off the couch in 10 years, you got to just start off by just getting in some walks, right?
Mhm.
Get in some walks, start that off 3 days a week and earn that confidence. Like start there, right? Once you've built that confidence in walks, start adding in some push-ups and squats on a regular basis. Once you earn that confidence, and don't try and jump ahead, like start there. Then you could look at something like our app, and in particular, our NCX program is phenomenal because it does have some great foundational strength. We have a movement library to show you how to do it. But if you're like just getting off the couch, you should not just go from 0 to 100. You got to start off really slow because you got to think to yourself, I want to be as fit as possible for the rest of my life. And if you go from 0 to 100, you're probably going to get burnt out. And that's a mistake that I've made as a gym owner many of times. I'm refusing to do that again. Where someone would come in, they'd be like, hey, I want to get in the best shape of my life. I'd be like, great, come in 5 days a week, stop drinking soda, let's go. And what I didn't realize, I actually wasn't setting them up for success, because more times than not, they'd be in for a month and they wouldn't come back. And a big learning lesson for me. So start slow, start walking, and progress from there.
Yeah, I mean, because it's definitely something you see is like there's a lot of like, how to squat effectively, how to deadlift effectively. There's a lot of kind of movement fixes you could do to do it effectively and efficiently, but even just safely. And I think that's why a lot of people struggle. They start going up in the weight too much. And, how do you start working with somebody to fix those skill gaps? I mean, especially things like, CrossFit's an amazing sport. But I mean, if I tried to go on a handstand push-up just now, I'd cause an earthquake when I tumbled over.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we wouldn't even have you do that, right? I mean, first I've had to understand, like, what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? And then back it in from there. Like, if you're not trying to compete in the sport of CrossFit, there's really no reason. I mean, or if you're not trying to compete, and or if you have a desire to learn a handstand, or if you're competing, then I would have you do those. Otherwise, I'd have you just say, hey, let's have you do some shoulder press with a set of heavy dumbbells. And that's really what the coach is there for, is to adjust things accordingly and to identify what your goals and aspirations are and help you get there.
So how would you, like, say if you had somebody who had a sort of general level of fitness and they came to you and said, brilliant, I want to start doing a bit more CrossFit movement patterns. How do you start working? Like, how do you build in that sort of level up of, like getting used to body weight control? When do you start adding weight? When do you start thinking, okay, you can actually start pushing yourself and adding in the volume, and you'd not dying the next day with the DOMS and the muscle soreness kicking in?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that just comes from experience, and I've made mistakes over the last, I've had the privilege of owning and operating gyms for close to 15 years, and I've made a lot of mistakes along that process. But a lot of it just comes down to figuring out, what does this person want to accomplish, and how do I help them get them there, and how do we take it slower than they probably want. So maybe they want to use 95 pounds. We need to encourage them to use 65, and really focusing on good range of motion, good movement, and then dosing them with intensity is the next piece.
Because I loved that you wrote an article, or maybe it was an interview, where you were talking about using small wins to get that confidence and sort of build them up. And I really like that approach of kind of like, I think it was Mark Fraser, when I spoke to him, he was saying, he gets somebody come in for maybe like one day, do a 15-minute EMON, and then say, yep, that's it for the day. Go home, recover from that, come in, and we can build from there. Do you still utilize the sort of CrossFit, the AMRAPs, the EMONs, those sorts of things?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I use AMRAPs and EMOMs every single day. I think where we at NCFit and where I have shifted over the years, though, is just a little bit away from complexity. I think that CrossFit as a strength conditioning program is great. I think that as a sport, it's awesome. I just think that for some of the movements, I no longer have a desire to do them. And we just don't really incorporate them into all of our programs at NCFit anymore, such as handstand push-ups, muscle-ups, full snatches. I've just seen over the last 15 years of actually working with athletes that a lot of times, if you only have X amount of days per week to get in your strength conditioning, I got to provide you with the movements that I believe are going to provide you the best impact. And typically those are going to be ones that you could develop competency in a shorter time frame. if you're only coming in 3 days a week, 4 days a week, whatever, and you're snatching once every couple of weeks, it's going to take you a long time to ever develop any level of competency there. I'd rather have you focus on just some good foundational strength movements like the thruster, the hang clean, and the squat. And that's just came from experience, right? So that's where we would start.
Because you were the sort of the first person who has seen take the concept of like AMRAPs, like as many reps as possible, and use it in a sort of mentality focus. You were kind of like how to become stronger mentally, how to deal with challenges and stuff like that. And I love that concept of like pushing yourself into these situations where you can actually struggle, that you are getting challenged, and use that to sort of propel yourself. How do you use that? And do you still use the mindset coach to kind of like help you on this journey?
Yeah, I mean, I don't speak to the mindset coach as much as I used to in the past, but basically the AMRAP mentality is all about this idea that when you're AMRAPing something, like let's just say I say, hey, do as many burpees as you can in 1 minute. That's all you would be focused on. You wouldn't be focused on anything else but those burpees in 1 minute. And that was the concept I tried to take my life, was just AMRAPing each thing. So when I'm on when I'm on with you, I'm on with you. When I'm at work, I'm at work. When I'm training. And really being present, being focused, and getting after it was the mentality, and it still is today. And so that's the AMRAP mentality, similar to workouts, as many reps as possible, just kind of taken into more of a mindset perspective.
And I loved your philosophy. It seems to be like an approach to life where it's like effort over everything. How do you adopt that? Because it's like you always seem to be pushing yourself and doing so much, and like always try to be a better father, being a better businessman, just better at everything you're doing, and building better relationships and like brotherhoods with like people you train with. How do you utilize this? Like, how do you make this more than a mantra, more like a philosophy in your life? Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of effort over everything is exactly what. Well, I mean, it's based on whatever you think it is to you, but for me, it's for my children, for everything that we do at the gym. I don't care how much you lift. I don't care how many calories you burn. I don't care about anything other than the fact that you could leave there feeling like you put in your best effort for that day. And if you could do that, you're winning. Effort over everything else is the key. And I think that's what we're really teaching our children, right? Is that mantra, that mentality.
So how do you analyze your sort of your day to day? Do you look at, like, do you journal? Do you kind of start and think, well, this is how I'm doing? Do you use apps and things like that? How do you know that you're on the right path and progressing? Or is there a way, or do you just think you have that general feeling? I mean, how do you analyze your performance and how you are as a husband, how you are as a businessman, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I think just a daily kind of low key check in. Hey, how am I performing today as a husband, a father, a business owner, an entrepreneur, and just checking in on those things I think is important. And the real idea here is it's not rocket science. It's just this idea of micro check-ins. And the theory that I have is that if you have these micro check-ins, you shouldn't wake up one day and feel like you were a terrible father or whatever, because you had these micro check-ins that were occurring and you were able to make small changes through that process.
Because it's like when the guy talked about micro adjustments in jiu-jitsu, and everybody was taking the mick out of him, and I was like, I can kind of see his point. If you move your hand slightly more this way, it can change for a better grip. If you do this, and I knew what you meant, but I think he was kind of thinking he created this new sort of concept, and I really like the way that you look at things. It's, you're kind of like always more open and flexible, and kind of, you always look at positively. And that's certainly something that's rare nowadays, but you have a great way of sort of approaching competition. You've got like a mantra that you utilize, and it's about going to move fast, but breathe slow to enter your flow state. I love that you were the first person I really heard talking about that. And I think you just won CrossFit when I first heard it, and I thought, oh, right, I didn't realize you could actually hit that. Like, you could put yourself into that. How do you go about that? Because competing is its own skill, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the move fast, breathe slow thing is really relatable, especially for when you're in high stress situations. You want to move with intention, with speed. You want to move, but you also want to keep your heart rate low. You want to think before you act. You want to move fast, move with purpose, but breathe slow. Like keep your heart rate low. And that's really what I would think about as I was going through all these events was move fast, move fast, move fast, but breathe slow. Stay focused. You know what I mean? And that was the key for me.
So, what would be like? Would you have a sort of ritual when you came in? Because I mean, you won the games on your first time. You know,
Yeah.
you crushed it. You know, everything you do, you seem to just go, "I'm going to start a fitness business," and it became a phenomenon. You know, it's like
I got lucky on the games. No, it was good. It was good. Good timing. Good. Everything worked out.
so. How did you learn to hit that? I mean, do you kind of sort of go in? I've seen you talk in other interviews about you would do the same warm up. You would kind of get into that mode of hitting beast mode and think, we're right, perfect. This is me. I'm kind of building up to it. What was it in your warm up, and how do you start switching that mind in? Because I think a lot of times people can be physically fit, but their mind is just all over the place. And you seem to be able to sort of focus, like you're saying, and not on our phones every 5 minutes. You're focused at work, then you're focused at your training. How do you train your mind to be physically fit, and how do you build that flow state while you're warming up?
Well, I think that one I think is just comes down to self-awareness, right? You need to be aware of when you are getting distracted or whatnot, and just come back to center base, right? So if you're doing something, you're at work or whatever, and you find yourself getting constantly distracted and getting 80% of the job done but not finishing it, you just got to remind yourself and just take a quick being aware that you're getting distracted is the first step. That's step number one. Because if you're aware, then you can make changes to adjust it. You know what I mean? But if you're not even aware, if you're not even paying attention, then you're not going to get anywhere.
Because there's those times when you're doing a sport or whatever, and it slows down, and you're kind of like, you're almost like you're seeing above it, like you're seeing from another angle, like you don't even realize what you're doing. And I love those states. And when I heard you talking about how you could tap into it with using mantras and things like that, you were really the first person who went into it. Everybody just talked about, just go to training, work harder, and you were kind of going into it like, and you had just become the fittest man on earth, and you were just killing it. And I think that's the thing, is like a lot of people they weren't aware of that kind of thing.
It's time for a quick break. There are millions of potential products to buy, so how do you know which ones are worth your hard-earned money? Simple. You go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and explore those that will transform and improve your life. You'll find deals, listener exclusives, and special offers with some great companies. Recommendations are 100% honest and only on items Ian has tried or believes in. The companies showcased will make you a better man in all areas of your life. Simply go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and level up.
How do you start working away from the training things to work on your mindset? Have you incorporated certain habits that help you in this? Do you journal? Do you visualize? Do you do any of these kind of like
I think the
modern
cold
day
plunge. The cold plunge has been a great addition to my life. That's for sure. So I do a lot of hot cold therapy, and that's been very, very beneficial to my life for sure.
And do you find that like the cold gets you that mental toughness that you're kind of, are you like into the shower, hot, cold sort of?
Yeah. No, I actually have like a actual cold plunge, like a bath, right? And it's been profoundly impactful on my mindset and my ability to overcome small micro adversity. And so yeah, it's been huge for me personally, and that's been a way that I've been able to grow.
Because I come from the Highlands of Scotland, and that's just outside weather for us at the minute.
Yeah. Well, you got to figure, right? That's me trying to put myself in these, we've gotten comfortable, and myself included. You can wear sweatshirts, you have air conditioning, you have heaters. We've just became so damn comfortable in everything we do that our body doesn't get exposed to these extreme hots or colds really at all. And so exposing it to the cold has been really helpful for me because I live in California. The weather here is amazing, right? But having this, cold exposure in particular with the plunge work, it's just been really good for like breath work and a lot of those areas.
Yeah, I mean it's certainly something I've noticed with a lot of people. It's like they need their heaters, they need to be on the bus. They can't walk, they can't. They're not wanting to put any sort of additional challenge in their lives, and I think that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu. It's you quickly realize you're not the toughest person in the room. Suddenly when you've got somebody's shoulder driving into your chin
Yeah.
and side control, you're like, hmm. What have you learned about life and
Oh, man.
yourself from jiu-jitsu?
Oh, so much. I mean, look, CrossFit came into my life at a really good time, and it was something that really made a dramatic impact on me. I dedicated my life to CrossFit for a decade plus. I mean, I traveled the world. I taught seminars. I fell in love with the idea of learning new skills and developing it. And I almost feel I don't want. It's just different, right? But my love for jujitsu is different, where it's more of a personal thing than like a public. Meaning, like with CrossFit, it introduced me to a lot of different elite fitness people, where I'm able to now kind of see where we want to go as an organization in our fitness journey and help as many people as possible and really become subject control experts there. But in jujitsu, it's not about me trying to go help other people necessarily. I mean, yeah, I can spread the word and tell people it's great, but I'm not going to go teach jujitsu. That's not my intention. My intention is really to have it as a personal practice, to learn, to grow. And it has been like just so impactful on me. I wish I had started it earlier. I mean, it's been great though. I love it.
It's certainly something when you get your arse kicked around and you suddenly find yourself going, okay, how do I improve that? How do I stop getting caught on that? I'm going to go back into it. Whereas I used to sit and put, I would go, oh, they did the X because I let them do that, or I would always have an excuse, and it made me sort of mentally tougher. And I think you kind of start. I don't know. It's quite primal having somebody on your back try to choke you out, and then
It's
you
very
thank
primal. The
you
feeling
thank
that I
them.
get when I leave is something that I never got from a CrossFit workout. I don't know if you feel the same thing, but like I, I actually think I need it, to be honest with you. I actually think that I need jujitsu in my life. Um, Otherwise, I don't feel. And when I was doing CrossFit, maybe I had the same idea, but now that I know what jujitsu feels like, I think maybe it's just a testosterone thing, maybe it's a masculine thing. I don't know, but like if I don't train for a little bit, I start feeling not anxious, but like I need to get out that like healthy aggression. Does that make sense? Like not in a combative way, but I don't know if you feel the same way.
Definitely, it's like it's like you've got this energy ball burning inside you, and you need to put it out. And it's really hard to explain to somebody who doesn't do it until you're physically sort of like you're entering the private space of somebody else. We're always told not to go near somebody, and then suddenly you've got a arm around your neck and you're trying to grind them into the ground and you're pulling an arm. And it just, I don't know. It's like what you do when you're a kid, but
Yeah,
yeah,
and
it's a controlled mayhem.
yeah, it is, and I actually think that more young men could use it personally. I mean, I think women too, of course. I shouldn't say just men, but I think in particular, you see some young boys, and I see it with my son. So I'll use him as an example because then no one can get mad at me. With my son, I see this aggression that he has, like healthy aggression, like some people like kind of like his combative, like kind of like male testosterone, whatever. And if we don't channel it effectively, if we don't have him exercise or play sports or do jiu-jitsu, he actually starts to act out and he starts to be a little bit, he just doesn't act as nice, right? And so I'll make him go in the garage and go do some stuff if I feel like he has pent up like energy that he needs to get out. And I think that's what I found through jiu-jitsu is that it's given me an outlet to go express this kind of primal kind of fight or flight mode. And I think it's been something very, very different that I wasn't expecting. That's been very good.
Because you really see that in sort of COVID situation, like when everything was getting locked down, people were saying, I need it for my mental health. It's the only place I can have in my life where I can let out like this energy, this kind of anger, this just even, I don't know, like it gives you a purpose. like for that half hour, whatever you're training. I mean, we would train for 2 hours and you would come out there, you could probably seriously hurt people with the skills you're getting taught. And the last thing you want to do is fight because you know how
Yeah.
to control somebody safely. But I don't know, it's almost like a sort of that power of that kind of, you can do it, but you don't need to. You don't need to prove anything. It sort of removes that masculine sort of need to, oh, I'm the toughest guy, I'm this, I'm that, where, I don't know, it has a sort of calming effect. It's something I'm a big sort of component of, is getting guys into it. And I love how you're into jiu-jitsu. I mean, how do you find it now? I mean, what belt are you at? Are you kind of like purple belt? Are you working towards, like, what's your sort of favorite positions?
Yeah. So, well, back to one thing you were saying is I think what's really unique about jiu-jitsu, and one of the things that why, so both of my kids, I do it with both of them. So I have my daughter doing striking. I do striking and groundwork with both of my children. And my goal, in particular, for my son, well, my goal for my daughter is definitely for her to be able to defend herself. It's very important to me, and I want her to be able to defend herself. And I want my son to be able to defend himself, but he's going to be on the bigger side, so I don't think he'll get like bullied. But I want him to never be the guy who does bully. Meaning, I never want him to be the kid who's insecure in themselves and they end up bullying because of that. And I think back to high school and the kids that were, that were bullying others. And really it was the people that weren't, fully satisfied in themselves. And I wonder if those people had been taught martial arts or had gone through some difficult, training, if they wouldn't have been that same way, because they would have had just more respect for other people. And so that's something I'm working on with my son in particular, back to what you were saying about, like, you can learn all these skills and you don't even want to use them. You just want to be nice and low key. But in regards to, so I'm a 3-stripe purple belt. What that means is that there's 4 stripes, because once you get your 5th stripe, then you get your next belt. And so it goes, for those people who are listening that don't know the belt system, it goes white, blue, purple, brown, black. There's 5 belts. And within those belts, there's stripes at most schools, not all schools, but most schools, because it takes you years to go from one belt to the other. I anticipate that I'm going to be competing this year. I anticipate if I do what I think I'll do, I should hopefully be getting my brown belt towards the end of this year, which should be pretty exciting. And, I like doing, half guard to side controls, kind of like my go-to.
Awesome. I love it. Because I love how it's become more modern and you see a lot more of these celebrities like Ashton Kutcher and all these sort of people doing it. And, everybody's complaining. And I was like, no, it's great that it's encouraging a lot more people to take it up and realize the benefit of it. And did you find, when you went from the competitor mindset to being the businessman, and being, and taking that focus away from just competing and training for the CrossFit, that you needed things like that more, and that would help a lot of guys who are trying to be fit, to give them a kind of mental workout as much as a physical?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on. I think I got into jiu-jitsu. So we used to sublease some space to a jiu-jitsu gym to a guy who did jiu-jitsu at one of our gyms. And it was actually a really beautiful combination where people would come there, they would do jiu-jitsu with him, and then some of them would end up doing training with us. But when I was very interested in it, and I did it for about a month. And then when I was competing at the highest level in CrossFit, I couldn't get hurt doing jiu-jitsu when my main sport was CrossFit. And so I told myself I'd always get back to it one day. And so when I retired from the sport of CrossFit in 2016, because my daughter got sick, it was a natural time for me to then start pivoting to jiu-jitsu. So I found jiu-jitsu in 2016 again, when Ava got sick, and it was just a phenomenal outlet where you could be on the mat and just be free and really be present, be focused. And I got a lot of value out of it now. Then I still get a lot of value out of it today.
And do you think that sort of helped you during that really awful time? I mean, I've had friends die with leukemia. I've had like grandparents with cancer and things like that. And I can't imagine what it's like. Like, I had, like, looking at somebody being really sick, and you feel so helpless. And I think that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu, martial arts. It's like you get that brotherhood of like your training partners, but you also kind of have a way of letting that stress out, but you also have a way to focus your mind, and it teaches you about hardship and challenge and kind of using everything as a learning experience. Did you find it helped you during that really difficult time?
Oh yeah, 100%. And I mean, there's a lot of characteristics between CrossFit and Jiu-Jitsu. I actually think that's why, and there we knew there was a carryover between CrossFit and Jiu-Jitsu for years, but I think more so now is that people kind of reach it this they fell in love with CrossFit because they wanted to learn these new skills. But now it's hard to gain, any percent gain on your snatch after you've been doing it for 10 years. But that's why a lot of people have gotten into Jiu-Jitsu because they feel like there's constantly something to learn, which there is. And I think that you're going to see more and more people convert over from CrossFit Jiu-Jitsu. But yes, I think that especially when Ava was in the hospital a lot, my Jiu-Jitsu was I ended up just doing privates to start when she wasn't in the hospital. When she was in the hospital, I ended up, I would stay in the hospital. And so I basically started off doing privates, and I'd recommend that for anybody. Actually, I think starting off with like 5 or 10 privates is a good way to start. Kind of get your feet wet, and then from there, I moved into classes. But yeah, I mean, you talk about just being present, being focused. Meeting really cool people with a shared interest to get better. That's what jiu-jitsu does, I think.
Now, I know there'll be people saying just now, because when I say, "Oh, come and do jiu-jitsu," people go, "Oh, no, I couldn't do that." They get that initial fear, that kind of like, "Oh, God, it's the..." Suddenly having a guy lying on top of you sweating and as he's trying to choke you out, it's quite terrifying. Like, even when I'm doing it, I'm thinking, why do I pay myself to do this? How do you train somebody who's coming to you for coaching, for CrossFit, for who's joining one of your programs and going, like, I'm out of shape, I've got man boobs, I've got whatever it is, like this imposter syndrome, this self-esteem bullshit that we beat ourselves up about. How do you start working with somebody to kind of give them that mindset of, we all start from somewhere, come and join encourage because you seem to create a community, like a brotherhood, like you do in CrossFit. You seem to create that in your gyms. You build this amazing community on your social media and things like that. What have you learned about getting over that fear and, encouraging people and sort of building a community within a gym?
Well, I mean, I think in the gyms it's really easy because people they especially now, COVID came and just kicked us in the nuts, and now people are missing that personal connection more than ever, and so it's been nice seeing these personal relationships regained and having people actually look at each other, say hi to each other, high five each other, and I think that we as a society, we need to have more personal connections with other people and remove just being online all the time. And I think that that's what we're trying to do at our gym. I know many other gyms are trying to do the same thing, which is giving a third place. You have your work, you have your home, and a lot of people have their third place. Now, some people look at that as a bar. I look at that as the gym. And this is a third place where you go and you have this group of people that are out there really trying to better themselves. And I think that's ultimately what brings people together in jiu-jitsu or CrossFit or any other gym, is that everybody's there with the shared mission of getting better at what they're doing.
Because I've not found anybody or any gyms yet where I've turned up and they've gone, "Oh, don't you know how to do that?" It's like people who are going there and thinking, "Great, another training partner. Great, somebody that I can learn from, somebody that I can do X move on or help with." And people love helping each other out. And I find that with a lot of top competitors is they feel the fear anyway, and they'll still do it regardless. They kind of accept it's going to be there, and they'll do it. You've worked with some amazing people. You've competed against some of the world's best. You've trained with some of the world's best. What have you noticed about top competitors? Have you seen like certain mindsets, certain habits, approaches to things that work, that make them the best of the best?
I mean, I think obviously this idea of like never settling, hard work, the idea of just being humble in their approach, I think those are universal characteristics. People are genuinely curious about getting better, learning. I think those are characteristics I think transfer over to any high level individual, whether it's an entrepreneur, a successful business leader. It's someone that doesn't have an ego, someone that's willing to work really hard, and someone that's willing to continue to learn from other people and take advice from other people. I think that's key. And, I think those are some of the things that have made, my career, whether it's in CrossFit or through the gym, successful, is just being more open to those type of things.
And how's your sort of attitude towards nutrition? I mean, I've seen on your Wikipedia, so of course it's got to be true if it's on Wikipedia.
Of course.
It said that you'd moved away from sort of like the paleo sort of eating, that sort of thing. How have you found about nutrition that now you're not just eating to compete, but you're just eating, to be fit, and you're sort of teaching people about fitness and nutrition and, that kind of thing. It's like, what have you learned about our approach to sort of supplements, meals? Do we need to get into that when we're starting out? Do we need supplements to be fit? Are there things that you think are a mistake for guys, or a certain way of approaching eating and how we
No,
eat?
I mean, no, I think for the most part, consistency matters. And I think that, eating real food at appropriate levels is the key. So, right now, if you're someone that's drinking soda, that's an easy way to get rid of something that's consuming excess amounts of sugar, right? So really what you want to try and do is look at your nutrition and say, okay, if I'm not motivated by, getting a six pack, well, maybe I'd be motivated by how I feel. And if you feel like shit throughout your day because you're having these highs and lows of insulin spikes, maybe what you need to do is think about how to not consume so many excess carbohydrates so your body can be at a level state mentally throughout the entire duration of the day. And so for me, what I think about is, and I've done continuous glucose monitor. I just got done doing 40 days of just meat and fruit. I've done a lot of different things, but I think at the end of the day, it's, eating moderate levels of food with making sure you're getting at least 1 gram of protein per every lean body, 1 gram of protein per every pound of lean body mass in your body a day. If you could start there, it's unlikely you're going to super overconsume carbohydrates, because eating, for me, let's just say 200 grams of protein is quite a bit. So if I have to consume that, it'll help me not to overconsume carbohydrates.
It's a great answer, because that's the sort of thing you see everybody go, okay, rice, broccoli, and chicken, and people go, well, like, how do you expect them to go from like KFC and like sodas and all that suddenly to eating completely clean? And I've listened to some of your podcasts, I've listened to some of your interviews where you've talked about, just slowly build, cut out a bit of this, add a bit of this. And I love how you're not just pushing in, oh, you've got to be 100% clean. You're kind of, you're giving people kind of the flexibility. And I think
And you
that's
have to, right? Otherwise, it's just, we're going to set people up for failure. And that's where I've just seen my own pitfalls over the years, right? Where, I thought that everybody, and not everybody has the same goals and aspirations, right? Like, if you're not trying to be the fittest, if you're trying to be like a professional athlete, well, then I'm going to have you do something different. But if you're just trying to live freely and fully, if you're just trying to look better naked for your spouse or whatever it is, then, we have to align expectations with your goals, because you're not going to be willing to put in as much work. For example, you if you just want to look better naked, you're not going to do all the sacrifice it might take if someone wants to become a professional athlete in a sport, and we have to be real about that and figure out what are your goals, what are your expectations, how do we help you accomplish them, and that's it. That's what we're trying to do.
And when you're doing recovery, I mean, everybody talks about overtraining and all this kind of, they kind of just forget the basic stuff. It's, you're doing fitness because it should be part of your life. It should be a system. It should be something that you're doing because you enjoy it to make your life better. It shouldn't be all that's in your life unless you're a competitive athlete. How do you create a sort of recovery protocol that looks after your body, but also looks after you emotionally? And you've got a beautiful family, you married your childhood sweetheart. I couldn't find anybody that had a bad word about you. How do you, how do you build these kind of recovery things that you can use the fitness to have an enjoyable life, to be the great dad, to be the great businessman, to be the great friend, etc.? How do you recover away from the fitness and use it to have the life you want?
Well, man, I think that's ultimately what it is that fitness allows me to live the life that I want, right? So you have to reframe it. Like, why do I exercise? I exercise because I'm trying to live. I want to be as healthy as I can for as long as I can for my kids. I want to be in a positive mindset. I want to learn how to overcome micro adversity. So all I need to do is go into the garage, kick my own ass, learn how to overcome that. And that's going to make me a better husband, a better father, a better person, because now I'm intentionally giving myself this adversity that I could then learn something from. And I think that's ultimately what I've came to the conclusion of is exercise is so much more. I think people think that it's like to look good or to be naked and all that kind of stuff. And like, yes, there's definitely that piece to it. But I think more so than any of that, fitness provides an outlet where you could expose yourself to this micro adversity that then you could start callousing your mind, stealing the words from Jocko Willink. And this way, when life comes and throws you a curveball, you'll be better prepared to handle it.
So for single guys like myself, you've lived with your partner since I think you were 14 when you met.
Yeah, we were 14 when we met. Yeah.
That's better. When I look back when I was 14, I was just, I don't even want to think about what I was like then. What has it sort of taught you, about relationships? What advice would you give to, like, I think my parents have just given up on me. I'm like on the single table at weddings now for life. And how did becoming a father change you? What advice would you give about creating that sort of strong family unit, that kind of, because I remember hearing about you talk about the values you want your son to have, and it's like why you want to impart on the next generation. What advice would you give?
Yeah, I mean, I think utilizing fitness is a great way that we have done that with our children, where we have them in the garage every single day. We have them playing sports. We have them learning how to win, how to lose, how to defend themselves, how to be respectful, how to be phenomenal. Like, I want my kids to be better expressions than me, right? And in particular with my son, I want him to be the guy in the room that is the most gentleman, the most kind, the most loving, the most sincere to every person in there, but at the same time could, basically in a hand-to-hand combat could outdo anybody in the room. That's my goal, because I know that if we provide him those sets of skills, he'll be able to go through life and be comfortable and never have to boast, but instead feel comfortable in his skin and be able to just be a good human being, and also to be able to potentially defend if someone needed their help. And so that's my goal for him, is to really make him this modern day gentleman that makes him something that I think other, people that I would aspire to be like. Like, who would I aspire to be like? That's who I want to try and help him be. And the same thing goes for Ava. How can we provide her the tools to be the woman that, is going to be intelligent, successful, while at the same time, all the other attributes that you look for in a very successful, amazing woman, same thing.
And is there ways that you would suggest people should encourage their children if they're maybe not as active? Is there kind of, what tips are, like, is it just getting them to come for a walk with the dog, or keeping it simple but keeping it fun?
Well, I mean, the whole thing is just showing up. I think that the thing about parenting that I've realized is, like, you don't have to be perfect, but you have to show up. I try and be everywhere I can, whenever I can. And they recognize when you show up, and starting off slow. I exercise with my daughter in the garage every morning, and then she jumps in the cold plunge, and I typically jump in after. And those are good moments that we can spend time together. But it's also something where I'm teaching her, like, hey, movement's just a part of life. Every day you need to move. I don't care what you do. Go to volleyball camp, go swim, go do whatever. But you have to move every single day. And, they could decide what they want to do. I think that's been really helpful for us, is that we're not forcing them to do anything. Now, if they want to go in the garage and do a 15-minute workout, all good. That's hard, a 15-minute harder workout. But if they want to go and play with their friends outside for 3 hours, that's fine too. It's just, we can't just be behind a computer screen.
And I think that's a great thing as well, is like it teaches you that you're going to feel that stress and that pressure in life, that kind of, I want to give up. But if you hold off and you let it just kind of flow, it goes away for a bit and then it comes back, and you learn to have that sort of strength of not just reacting. You actually learn to kind of deal with it. And that's something I wish I'd known when I was younger. You don't have to just react to something. You can actually step above it. And I think that's why jiu-jitsu and CrossFit and sport is such a great thing. I mean, I'm really disappointed. We've been on, I can't believe we've only been on an hour. It feels like 10 minutes. It's an absolute a joy to speak to you. I would love to do a round two. But what would you want people now to look up for NCFit? I mean, if people who are thinking, right, I need to get back in shape. This guy sounds awesome. I want to come and listen to him and, listen to his podcast. I want to get into his programs. This is a perfect time to sell it. What can we get from NCFit? How can we use it? How can we join the brotherhood? How can we sort of finally become fit in our lives, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, so I think that, we like to think of it as it's strength conditioning, born in NorCal, close to 15 years ago, and now it's, all over the world. And if people are interested, they could go download the NCFit app. They can go to nc.fit. That's the website. You can either find one of our brick and mortar locations or join us on the app there as well. If you're a gym owner and you want to use the same plans that we use in our gyms, we also have that available. But it's just nc.fit on Instagram, nc.fit online. You can also just check out the Effort Over Everything podcast and also Jason Khalipa on all social channels.
And what have you learned, do you think, from your journey into this sort of fitness, you doing your podcast? You've had a great range of guests and you have the kind of like the shoot the shit episodes, as I like to refer to them, like, where you kind of flesh out ideas and that. Has it helped you in your sort of approach to sort of fitness and using your sort of CrossFit experience, your jiu-jitsu experience, and like looking at people from different countries, etc.? Has this made you a better coach and a sort of better businessman, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I just like to talk to people that I'm interested in, like having this conversation, just having good conversations with people. I think in long form, I think especially nowadays is such a great thing because everything is so like instantaneous, TikTok, this, that. And I think it's good to, have long form conversations. We can really get to know somebody and really unpack data that could really be helpful instead of it just being some TikTok 20-second, Instagram, you know what I mean? That's what I'm about.
Yeah, it's definitely become a sort of like short return world. Everybody expects no focus, and you're kind of like, oh, I can't listen to a 3-hour podcast. And you're like, why not? It's scary. Yeah. What would you want people to take from this? Because I think we're just scratching the surface, and I would you're the kind of guy I would love to sit and have a pint with, and we could chat for hours, I think. But what would you want people to sort of remember from this? If this was if they had to take, say, maybe 1 or 3 things from this, what would you want them to remember as a sort of go home message?
I think that, fitness doesn't have to be overwhelming. Just better is better. Start slow and work your way up. That's the piece of cake. Like, honestly, if you're in a place in your life right now where you're feeling depressed, you're saying, oh, I'm out of shape, I'm this and that. Dude, all it takes is tomorrow, go out for a 10-minute walk and then wait a day and then do it again the next day. But just start slow and create habits. That's number one. Number two is, if you're not doing some type of foundational strength conditioning, you should be doing it. You should also be doing strength work in addition to just the conditioning piece after you've kind of built up this kind of level, this hedge. And then finally, I think, going out, learning new things, exposing yourself, and also exposing your kids to micro doses of adversity, I think is a good thing. We always try and, protect our children, and of course we all do. But I think that if we overprotect them, we're not setting them up for success in the future. And so I think it's finding ways to push them, get them uncomfortable, and use teaching moments that then later on in life will really help. That's what I'm trying to do.
That's a fantastic answer. How can people keep in touch with you until we can get another one? Like, how do you want people to find you? How can they interact with you? And what do you want the evolution of your brand to be? How can we follow along the journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think just, go check out nc.fit, check out Jason Khalipa on Instagram. That'd be great. I think the evolution of our company is that we started off as primarily a CrossFit company. We were really about it. And over the years, we've just kind of identified that, hey, CrossFit's its thing and is great. We're kind of going in a little bit of a different direction. We're removing some of the complexity and kind of focusing more on just the foundational strength conditioning. And I think that if people want to jump on that, come on with us. NCFit app is great. And, I don't coach jiu-jitsu, but you guys should be checking that out as well.
Well, that's it for another week. and thank you for listening. It's now time to take what you've learned and use it to develop and enhance your life with the key points mentioned. Listen, try it, embrace it, use it, and crush it. Now's your time to hit that next level in your life. If you liked this episode, then please leave a comment on the show notes or a review of the show on your podcast platform. Everything helps evolve the show. Until next week, keep seeking the next level in your life.